In July of 64 AD, a fire broke out in the shops surrounding Rome's Circus Maximus, and, fed by the tightly packed wooden tenement buildings that made up most of the city, quickly spiraled out of control. For 6 days it burned, eventually consuming 10 of Rome's 14 districts. 3 of them left completely leveled. Emperor Nero, according to the most famous version of the story passed down through history, watched the destruction of his own capital from a tower while playing a fiddle, a detail so vivid and so damning that it has survived as popular shorthand for callous indifference for nearly 2,000 years. There is just one significant problem with the story. The fiddle, as an instrument, would not be invented for well over 1,000 years after Nero's death. The earliest surviving accounts of the fire, written decades after the event by historians including Tacitus and Suetonius, both of whom were openly hostile to Nero's memory and writing under later emperors with every political incentive to blacken his legacy, do describe Nero as having sung of the destruction of Troy while watching the fire, comparing it to a favorite theatrical performance. Even that detail is disputed and may itself be political embellishment. What both ancient historians do agree on, notably, is that Nero was not even in Rome when the fire started, but at his villa in the coastal town of Anium, and rushed back to the city specifically to organize firefighting and disaster relief efforts once he learned of the scale of the disaster. Records describe him opening his own gardens and public buildings to shelter the newly homeless and arranging for emergency food supplies, actions that sit uncomfortably alongside the callous fiddler myth that would eventually eclipse them in popular memory. If Nero's actual response to the fire was reasonably responsible, why does the fiddling myth persist so powerfully? Part of the answer lies in what happened after the fire. Nero used the newly cleared land in the city center to build an enormous and extravagant palace complex for himself, the Domus Aurea, or Golden House, complete with a giant lake and a colossal statue of himself, a project that struck many contemporary Romans as suspicious in its timing and scale, fueling rumors that Nero had ordered the fire started deliberately to clear space for his own vanity project. Combined with his already declining popularity among the Roman aristocracy and his eventual violent overthrow just 4 years later, Nero became a convenient villain onto whom later hostile historians could project every possible failing. And the story of the indifferent tyrant fiddling while his people suffered proved simply too dramatically satisfying to abandon, even after the specific detail was chronologically impossible. 2,000 years later, the myth remains far more famous than the more complicated, more human truth it replaced. In late January 1959, a group of 9 experienced Soviet hikers, most of them university students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, set out on a skiing expedition through the northern Ural Mountains, a challenging but not unprecedented route for a group with their level of outdoor experience. When the group failed to send their expected check-in message by the planned date, and subsequently failed to return at all, a search party was dispatched, eventually locating their abandoned tent partially collapsed and, disturbingly, cut open from the inside, with the hiker's boots, warm outer clothing, and supplies still left behind inside. An almost inexplicable detail suggesting the group had fled the relative safety of their shelter in extreme haste into sub-zero temperatures without adequate protective gear. Search teams eventually located all 9 bodies scattered across the surrounding slope over the following weeks and months, some partially buried under deep snow. While several of the hikers appear to have died primarily from hypothermia, consistent with fleeing into extreme cold without proper clothing, forensic examination of several other bodies revealed severe internal injuries, including major chest fracturing and skull trauma. Injuries so significant that the original examining pathologist stated they were comparable in severity to what might be caused by a serious car accident, yet notably without any corresponding external wounds, bruising, or broken skin on the affected bodies, a combination investigators at the time found difficult to reconcile with any conventional explanation involving a physical struggle, an avalanche, or an animal attack. The Soviet investigation at the time officially closed the case, citing an unknown compelling natural force, a deliberately vague conclusion that only fueled decades of subsequent speculation, ranging from secret Soviet military weapons testing to more fringe theories involving unidentified flying objects. In 2021, a team of Swiss researchers published a detailed physics-based study proposing that a specific, delayed type of small slab avalanche, triggered hours after the hikers made their initial camp cut into the slope, combined with the specific angle of the terrain, could plausibly generate the severe internal injuries without leaving obvious external avalanche debris or clear surface disturbance. A theory that has gained meaningful scientific traction, though it still leaves some specific details of the case, including the precise sequence of events that led the group to abandon their tents so suddenly, without complete, universally agreed-upon explanation, leaving the Dyatlov Pass incident formally classified in some Russian records, even today, as involving a force that remains only partially understood. Between 1929 and 1937, an international team of paleoanthropologists excavating at the Zhoukoudian cave site near Beijing, China, discovered an extraordinary collection of fossilized skeletal remains belonging to Homo erectus, an early human ancestor species, remains that came to be popularly known as Peking Man, representing at the time one of the most significant and complete collections of early human fossil evidence ever discovered anywhere in the world, providing invaluable direct physical evidence that dramatically advanced contemporary scientific understanding of human evolutionary history and humanity's specific evolutionary development across ancient Asia. As Japanese military forces advanced further into China during the escalating conflict of the late 1930s and early 1940s, the fossils custodians grew increasingly and understandably concerned about their safety and potential loss. And in late 1941, shortly before the outbreak of full-scale war between Japan and the United States, the original fossil specimens were carefully packed into secure containers specifically intended for safe transport to the United States for wartime safekeeping. Reportedly scheduled to be transported alongside a group of departing American Marines evacuating the region. The fossils were never seen again following this planned transport, vanishing completely somewhere during the chaotic and dangerous wartime transport process, and despite extensive post-war search and recovery efforts undertaken over the following decades, the original irreplaceable Peking Man fossil specimens have never been definitively located or recovered. Fortunately, and largely due to the considerable foresight and diligent scientific preparation of the original excavating researchers, extremely detailed and precise plaster casts, along with extensive photographic documentation and detailed written scientific descriptions, have been carefully created of the original fossils before their disappearance, allowing subsequent generations of paleoanthropologists to continue conducting meaningful scientific study and comparative analysis of the Peking Man specimen's key features despite the tragic and permanent loss of the actual original physical fossil material itself. Numerous competing theories regarding the fossil's ultimate wartime fate have circulated among historians and paleoanthropologists in the decades since, ranging from the specimens having been lost when a specific transport ship carrying them was sunk during the conflict, to their having been looted, deliberately destroyed, or possibly even secretly buried somewhere within China itself before ever actually leaving the country. But despite periodic renewed search efforts and occasional promising but ultimately unconfirmed leads over the following 8 decades, the original Peking Man fossils remain among the most significant lost artifacts in the entire history of paleoanthropological science, an invaluable scientific loss whose exact circumstances remain frustratingly and permanently unresolved. In 1987, Soviet archaeologists conducting a routine preliminary survey ahead of a planned dam construction project in Russia's southern Ural Mountains region unexpectedly discovered the remains of an extensive, remarkably well-preserved fortified Bronze Age settlement, subsequently named Archaim, dating to approximately 2000 BC and revealing a genuinely sophisticated circular urban planning design featuring concentric defensive walls, precisely organized residential dwellings, and what appeared to be a deliberately engineered drainage and sewage management system considerably more advanced than researchers had generally expected from settlement of that specific era and geographic region. A discovery significant enough that local authorities ultimately altered the planned dam construction project, specifically to preserve the archaeological site, rather than allowing it to be flooded as originally planned. Some archaeologists and astronomers studying Archame's specific and precise circular architectural layout have proposed the settlement's design incorporated deliberate astronomical alignment features, potentially allowing ancient inhabitants to track and observe specific solar and lunar events throughout the year, drawing some direct scholarly comparison to England's considerably more famous Stonehenge monument. Though this specific astronomical alignment interpretation remains genuinely debated among specialist archaeologists, with some researchers considering the evidence for deliberate, intentional astronomical design features less definitively conclusive than proponents of the theory suggest. Given the inherent methodological challenges of confidently distinguishing genuinely deliberate ancient astronomical alignment from simple structural or geographic coincidence in any ancient circular settlement design, Archame has, somewhat unusually for a genuine archaeological site, also become closely associated with various contemporary Russian nationalist and New Age spiritual movements, some of which have controversially promoted the site as evidence of an ancient, ethnically specific Proto-Slavic or Aryan civilizational origin point. Interpretations that mainstream professional archaeologists studying the site firmly and consistently reject as having no genuine scientific or archaeological basis whatsoever, instead identifying Archame's original Bronze Age inhabitants as belonging to the broader and considerably more historically diverse Sintashta archaeological culture, a Bronze Age society whose various regional settlements were subsequently linked to the historical spread of early Indo-European language groups across a considerably wider Eurasian geographic area than any Nero, ethnically exclusive nationalist framing would suggest. Despite this genuine and ongoing tension between legitimate professional archaeological interpretation and considerably more ideologically motivated popular mysticism surrounding the site, Archame remains an actively and seriously studied archaeological location. And mainstream professional researchers continue conducting legitimate, ongoing excavation and analysis work specifically intended to better and more accurately understand the genuine historical Bronze Age society that originally constructed and inhabited this genuinely remarkable ancient settlement.